Everybody, and welcome into another Best Damn Pod in the Land. With me, as always, Dan Divjak. Dan, we're doing our Buckeye Friday. No football this weekend. No football this week. Transfer portal opened. Kind of quiet. How's it going?
It's going good, man. I got sucked into the world of Twitter this morning and started out with a post that there's a definite line in the sand in Buckeye Nation.
Yeah.
So I'll never be doing that again.
I for bad, good, or otherwise, after summer of 2023, I came up with my, kind of sort of famous Twitter rules that I tell everybody about. I don't argue with strangers on Twitter or the internet. I don't tweet at recruits, at coaches, or at current players. I just don't do it. It's not my MO. So if you want to start an argument, you're better off starting it with Dan, because I'm not going to respond. I'll just
don't.
Sometimes I do GIFs or emojis just to like stoke the fire. But
don't do that. I'm adopting
I'm
the
just
same
kidding.
rule. Adopting the same rule. I will tweet at a player or a recruit, but only in a positive manner.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, keeping it positive is good. I think I've retweeted a couple recruits, with fire emojis and that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'm just watching the transfer portal, but it's quiet, man. It's quiet.
Very quiet right now.
Yeah, and eerily quiet is what is unfortunate. But so Dan, one of our talking points was, why is it so slow, and do you think it will pick up? So I think you touched on this before.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of reasons, right? Number one, the spring is always going to be slower than the fall. It was last year, it was the year before that. I think there was this assumption, and there were some pretty bold statements made by some very well followed people out there that it was going to be pure mayhem. And I think it was the assumption that now that nil is basically the wild, wild west, that you'd start to see that the portal was just going to be pure mayhem.
Yeah.
Well, number one, the fall portal is when most of the guys are going to get in there, right? I don't see that changing.
Yeah.
Because guys want to be in time, for spring practice. The other thing is that, there's a lot of teams that haven't finished spring yet, right? And could be strategic on their part, right, to delay their guys from getting in the portal. If they're content with their roster and they're really not looking to add anybody, then it's a good strategy in the sense that they're not looking to pick anybody up that jumps in there, right?
Right.
But they can keep those guys there for another week. And then there's also, the B side to that is that there's back channeling going on like crazy right now, probably more so than into the fall, right? I mean, I'd be shocked if we're not talking to some offensive linemen that are not in the portal right now. That's against the rules, but that's the new age, $500 handshake.
Yeah.
Right. is back channeling in the portal. You're either talking to agents, you're talking to high school coaches, you're talking to family. If you want to be really brave, you reach out to the player directly. I don't think that's very bright. You certainly aren't doing that with somebody from a rival or anybody that might want to get back at you because they've been caught recently in scandals and they're looking for a reason to, get you in trouble. Not talking about anybody in specific.
Michigan State, maybe. I don't know. Purdue.
But I think that, the spring's going to be a little bit slower every year than the fall.
Okay.
And, also then lastly, I think a lot of teams got ahead of stuff.
Yep. That's what I was referring to. I thought you hit the nail on the head with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think
your thoughts on it.
Well, that's I actually mostly agree with you. I think teams have started to figure out the NIL stuff. They've worked with their players. And schools now have people that are working directly with NIL collectives. Ohio State's one of them. That Jonah Booker talked about this last year, that if and when Ohio State figured out their NIL stuff, look out. And that's exactly what's happened. Ohio State has figured it out because of I mean, I think we have the largest alumni base in, college football. So, um, if not, it's right up there. And there's the fans and the amount of fans that it's a global product. So yeah, I think that's part of it. I also was looking at the number of teams that haven't finished spring practice, and you're right that I think there's still about 30% of the teams that like spring practice hasn't completed yet. So I think that team up north, theirs is this weekend. So when Loveland and Graham and Will Johnson all enter the portal on Sunday, we know what's up. It was after the fact, and you can clip that and put it out there if you want, Michigan fans. Just drive up our clicks, man. Drive them up. Give it
There
to
you
me.
go.
I want it all. No,
Yeah. Well,
no, I don't actually think any of those guys are going to leave, unless you listen to Pete Thamilton. And
honestly, the only one that wouldn't surprise me jumping in the portal is Loveland, only because they don't seem to have their current quarterback on the roster, is what a lot of their fan base is saying. And
I
if it is Orgy, then what role is Loveland really going to play?
in
And
an
number two,
orgy,
he's a
I don't know.
Colorado kid. You did not just go there.
I'm sorry.
Um,
Uh,
I'm actually
it's Friday,
disappointed in
man. It's Friday.
I'm disappointed in myself that I didn't go there first.
Yeah,
Um, but he's a Colorado kid.
yeah,
It's not like he's a Michigan kid that grew up a Wolverine, right?
yeah.
So he's the one that I could see jumping in there. Um, and then also, going back to one other thing that you can't underestimate regarding the spring portal is that SEC rule. We didn't talk about this, but you can't transfer from one SEC school to another in the spring. So that
Well, I
means
don't
you're
know why you
counting
would
on
want to
SEC.
if you're, just come to Ohio State.
Yeah, right. So and if you're an SEC guy and you're from the South and you don't want to leave close to home, then where are you going to go?
Yeah,
Maybe a couple ACC schools. That's not fun.
yeah. Well, nobody wants to go to the ACC, man. Nobody wants to play for 6-6 Miami. Come on.
Yeah, except for
Um,
Cam Ward, which
yeah. Well,
a
I mean,
lot of
unless they
Buckeye
drop the
Nation is.
bag, like they did with Justin Scott, and you've got money in your commitment
You're at
pick.
it.
So
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, that's cool. Like, I kind of did this little funny thing where that I like to do, and I said transfer portal palooza. I'm poo pooing this, so I peeked. There hasn't been much. Again, there was one player that I was really interested in back. He'd already transferred once in the December transfer portal window, and it was Penny Boone out of Toledo, running back, and he's transferring. And he transferred to Louisville, and he's in the transfer portal again. He's a 4-star guy, according to the transfer portal. Big kid, power back. It would be a depth piece. I don't think he'd come here to be a depth piece. But it was just somebody that I like. He's a name that I was like, oh, well, if he wanted to come here, I would say yes. Because he reminds me a lot of Carlos Hyde. He's got power, but a little bit of a burst, and just that was the only name that really jumped out at me. Caden Proctor's in there, but he has a do not contact thing on it, so it looks like he's definitely headed back to Alabama.
Yeah.
And then I was going to ask, do you think that Ohio State has any interest in that tackle that left Troy, went to A&M, and is in the portal again?
I mean, maybe didn't we have an interest in him last
They
fall?
did. Yeah, they did in December. Yeah, they had contacted him, and it was, I don't know if it really went anywhere. A&M obviously has some of that oil money, so I'm assuming that's how he ended up where he ended up.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, unless it's somebody that we can plug in and
Right.
start, then I don't see us getting anything more than maybe a couple depth pieces.
Yeah.
I mean, Justin Fry is the new Parker Fleming, and as far as the rabid Buckeye Nation, crazies are concerned, they're going to run him out if it's the last thing they do, unless he starts to pick up and get some big,
Well, you got to do
results. Or
something.
yeah, you know how I feel about the offensive line. I mean, that's the one unit on the team that can be better. The sum of the parts is better than the parts. right?
Yeah.
And it can be. You can develop throughout the year. Our offensive line actually played pretty well last year. You know, everybody wants to remember Missouri, but if you go back to the Michigan game, man, that one drive when we were down 17-10 and we marched down the field and we ran the ball like 8 or 9 straight times, we dominated them on that drive. We
Yeah.
ran it in. Trey scored. We tied it up. I mean, I'm more optimistic about our offensive line than other people are. I'm concerned more with the depth, you know?
Yeah. So
So
this,
we'll see.
the kid's name looks like it's Ruben Unije, 6'6", 310, Bradenton, Florida. Nice area, Bradenton. 3-star out of high school, number 795 overall, 52nd ranked offensive tackle. So
I don't know what
I
he
don't
did at
know.
A&M last year.
Huh?
What did he do at A&M last year?
Uh,
Did he play?
oh, wait, I'm looking at the wrong guy. This is the kid at Louisville. I'm sorry. Looking at the wrong guy. Texas A&M. I'll look. But anyways, the idea here is that we, you know, like you said, if he's not going to come in, if this whoever this would be is not going to come in and be an immediate impact player, then I don't see the point. So so now we're gonna do showstopper wild takes. I just thought this would be fun. Maybe not, maybe here we go. Dan, like I said, you can add yours in, but I am going to start off by saying Emeka Egbuka is going to win the Bolitnikoff this year. True or false?
False.
Oh, I don't like you now. Why?
Because I don't think Ohio State does a good job of promoting their players for awards, and I don't see him having the type of season that will be so hard to deny that he's going to get it.
Okay, let me tell you why this is true. This is true because on the opposite side, you will have Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. And so there's going to be a lot, and because of the amount of hype that Jeremiah Smith is getting early on, I think Jeremiah Smith's going to rake. I think he's just going to clean up because you're going to have guys trying to cut. You're going to have your third corner trying to cover Jeremiah Smith, and then it's going to be the Marvin Harrison effect. They're going to start bracketing him, and guess who's going to be streaking open down the field? Emeka Egbuka. So I'm going out way on my future cast limb, and I'm saying Emeka Egbuka with a new AD and a new media team wins the Bolitnikoff this year. So back-to-back Bolitnikoff Award winners, Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka.
So is this the part where I interject and say none of our receivers are going to have enough explosive plays or catches because of Will Howard at quarterback?
You can interject whatever you want, man. This is our show. We own it. We can say what we want. We're not beholden to the Ohio State University.
I don't know. I heard somebody the other day say that they thought we were going to run the ball 68% of the time, and it's like they suddenly forgot that Ryan Day's our coach.
68.
That was a legitimate statistic.
I just choked on my pot.
Say on a podcast the other day was 68% of the time run. I don't know. I mean, people, when you hear comments like that, I think they think that Howard's going to get 20 carries a game. The guy's averaged 5 or 6 carries a game throughout.
And he doesn't want to average that many. He wants to do like 2.
He's not Tim Tebow. Could he be? I mean, physically, yeah. But no, we're not going to be running the ball 68% of the time.
I want to see something. I want to know in 2019 when Justin Fields was here, what the percentage was that they ran the football with J.K. Dobbins. See if I can find that. 48.99% of the time they ran the football in 2019.
And didn't we have 3,000 yards rushing that year?
Yes.
And it was still only 48% of the time?
That's what this says, 2019. Passing. Yeah, that's what it says. This is college football stats, sports source. So, yeah, I mean, so it says
we got our next wild thought here.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I don't want to belabor the point too much, but yeah, it says, oh, I get it. Yes. So 57.49% of the time were passes. So that leaves what, 43.5%.
Yeah.
And that's Big Ten play. Big Ten play. That doesn't include the out of conference schedule because I'm sure late in the games they ran the ball a whole bunch.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I 70% bullshit. Not gonna happen. So what do you got, Dan?
Next one you got on here is that Jeremiah Smith's already better than JSN and Marv were as freshmen.
Yep.
I agree with that.
Mm.
I mean, they didn't get on the field as freshmen.
No, you think about it.
And I mean, go to the horse's mouth.
Mm-hmm.
That Marv said that he is better than him.
Yeah. Well, Marv didn't play really much until that Rose Bowl. JSN was the number 3 guy behind, Olave and Garrett Wilson, which, I quite honestly, I think Jeremiah Smith might be probably in that same scenario where he would be the 3rd guy, at least initially, behind those two. So yeah, I 100%, I'm not arguing it. Everything I've seen, everything I've heard, there is nothing stopping that kid from being, everything we believe he can be. So I just hope he stays healthy and we get to see that. So that one's not as outlandish as my Emeka Egbuka take, but I had to start off fiery. I had to be fiery. I was in a fiery mood this morning.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. If Jeremiah Smith is anything than the number 1 receiver, it's strictly because of philosophy.
Mm. Well, it might be because he's behind Jaden Ballard, but
God, don't get me started.
All right, so my next one, and I had a little fun with this one because you know me, I like to have a little fun sometimes. Caden McDonald will end up being the starting defensive tackle by midseason in place of Ty Hamilton, not Tyler Williams. Ty Hamilton. Caden McDonald by midseason will end up being the starting defensive tackle in place of Ty Hamilton, despite the fact that Ty is a 5th-year senior.
Yeah. I might buy that only because they don't necessarily start the same guys on the D line in the interior every game, anyways.
Nope. A lot of competition at that spot, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hero
I know you're a big Caden fan.
I am.
I mean, I love the kid. I want to see him tote the rock at the goal line this year, at least on 1 or 2 occasions.
Yep.
I think he will because I think he's going to be in there as a lead blocker on some stuff, and I think Chip is crazy enough to give it to him.
Yep. After seeing him open, go ahead.
If you saw his high school film, he's got the experience.
Yeah. After seeing Chip Kelly open up the spring game in the wing tee, I believe anything is possible. Yep. I believe I can fly. Yeah. All right. So the reason I asked this question was very specific because we've heard a lot of hype around Jason Moore. And so I know we're going to need to rotate. So do you think that I want to ask this in a different way because this is something I was hashing around in my head. Do you think they essentially have three true starters at defensive tackle now? Or are we just seeing them kind of work through some of the spring stuff? I know Hero Canoe got some run late last year due to injury. Where do you sit with that? Do you think that or is this just we have a 2 deep? This is our 2 deep, and we're going to rotate, and the best players are going to make plays.
Yeah, it goes back to you can change who starts from game to game on the interior there.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ty League starts every game that he's healthy.
Agreed.
But the reality is that regardless of who's starting or not, I came out of camp way more confident about the depth across the entire defensive line than I did going into it.
I think a lot of us did. Let me ask you something, because you and I are not that much different in age. If I told you Caden McDonald reminded me of Michael Dean Perry, what would you say?
I think he's a little heavier than Michael Dean Perry.
Just saying, like the body type, Michael Dean Perry would get in on, he would be a fullback.
I mean,
I met
yeah,
Michael Dean Perry. He came to my high school as one of the Browns backers benefits, and he played basketball, and the dude was like dunking. He was lights out. He was so light on his feet, but he
yeah.
was like 305, huge guy. But
What was
man,
he? The
he could
icebox?
ball. Yeah,
His brother's the refrigerator, right?
refrigerator. Yeah,
And then they called him the icebox just because people don't have a sense of imagination.
yeah. Nobody can be
Um,
creative these days, or in the '80s
but
apparently.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean that's fair. That's fair.
Okay.
Um,
Just something. Just because Caden McDonald's, he's such a freak athlete. He's so quick for a guy that
yeah.
big, and then having the ability to tote the rock. I haven't seen him play basketball, but I'm assuming he can. Just a question, just one of those things. Like I sit around like you do, and we're all just talking about things, and we're always thinking about things, and I'm like, who does he remind me the most of? And then so of course my inner child goes, Michael Dean Perry, dude. So
Yeah.
anyways, all right. So I'm going to get you with this one. I've been waiting. I waited since I didn't even bring it up on when we had Juck on the other day. And again, thanks, Juck, for jumping on our show, man. Appreciate you a lot. Speaking of other shows, Dan, since we're kind of in the middle of our show, I'm going to take a breath. Why don't you tell everybody what you get to do and be a special guest on?
Yeah, I am going to be joining Corey tomorrow night on the Scarlet and Great podcast. He solicited a volunteer to come on and
You're
present the
welcome.
position of DB33, being the guy. He indicated that he just doesn't see it. He said he's not looking to create a gotcha session, which I trust him. Corey's a good guy. I watched the show; it's good stuff. But he wants to know why some people believe in DB33 so much.
Yep.
And
Well,
I feel like I can talk about that.
Yeah, you can definitely talk about that. And I think that without revealing too much, because of who you know, and the fact that you watched him all through his high school based on location, you had so much value to the conversation, and so I'm looking forward to watching that. And Corey is a good dude. We've exchanged content and talked and follow each other on Twitter for a long time. So looking forward to watching that show. I'm excited that you get to go on the show, and I'm sure that you'll convince some hearts and minds after we get done. So
I fully expect not to change a single mind while I'm on that show.
well, we can all be hopeful.
I'm gonna give my position though.
Yeah, that's all you can do, man.
I think I've won you and Juck over a little bit.
Hey, man, I'm a rational guy. I when it comes to things, I'm pretty rational. Like I'm data driven, but I work in IT. So I use the data to find the best solution possible. That's what I do. That's my job. And when I look at the data tells me I have 5 years of Will Howard, and I can see what the data like what it looks like. And it shows me, a low completion percentage on deep balls, that he was used primarily as a running quarterback. He got beat out by one of the Martinez brothers. And that we have a guy in Devin Brown who wants to be here, who has been nicked up a little bit, who got used inappropriately, in my opinion, as a Tebow-esque running quarterback who can pull the ball down and run, but has a nice arm. So it's it is what it is. It's the age old thing. I'm old enough to remember the Kelly Holcomb, Tim Couch, nonsense for the Browns. I'm old enough to remember JT and Cardale in 2015. I remember Braxton Miller and all that stuff. And then it goes back to freaking Stanley Jackson and Joe Germain. Like, there's always going to be the backup quarterback's the best loved person in town, man. If you aren't winning, or or if you haven't won a natty lately, so it is what it is. So I don't want to spend any more time on that. I'm so annoyed by it. My next hot take. Are you ready? You feeling feisty?
Uh-huh.
Sonny Styles will start at linebacker and not CJ Hicks, because CJ Hicks will end up playing the jack position. see guy with ball, hit guy with ball.
I don't think it's that hot of a take, brother. I think it's actually what most people are expecting.
Okay.
I just think people expect Sonny's going to be the guy. Now, I do believe, James, that the starter could change from game to game depending on the type of week you have.
Fair.
So it could be a matchup dependent thing. I think we're going to see those guys on the field a lot, but it goes back to what I said during the last show with Juck and you on Tuesday was Jim Knowles' comment about CJ was very telling to me. CJ is best when he's blitzing and directed.
See guy hit ball.
Tell CJ what to do, and he'll do it better than anyone else. Make him have to think and react. And that's why he probably hasn't been on the field yet.
Yep.
All that much.
Yeah. So that's what why I jokingly said that. But there are some guys that just they're great athletes in space. And if you say your job is to get the guy with the football, that's your job. You don't do anything else.
You just said athletes in space after what I went through today.
Yeah. Anyways,
the guy's a douche.
Yeah. I'll let you give your rant soon enough. And my last hot take, and I guess I'll stay on the Sunny Styles thing. I think that I like the idea of starting Sonny there because I think Sonny can make that position a rock star position at will, and I'm okay with using CJ Hicks as a Baron Browning kind of guy where you just go get the ball, man, hit the quarterback, hit the guy with the ball. I'm good with that. Let's just do it and call it what it is, and that I'm there. I'm kind of, again, that's another one that, all right, fine, let's do it. Now this one was a little bit out there, and because I like I said, I was just feeling. I had to do contract negotiations this morning, just feeling a little bit feisty. So, Jermaine Matthews and Calvin Simpson-Hunt are going to be better by the time they leave Ohio State than Burke and Igbinosun are now. True or false?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's controversial at all. I don't think that's far-reaching at all.
I don't think so. Right now, I don't think so. But I think by the time that they're done, and and here's the thing is I love Burke. I mean, I think Denzel Burke is a phenomenal player. And I was when he came in as a true freshman, I was like, he's 3 and done. He's 3 and done.
Yep.
And so to have him back for a senior year is fantastic. You were 100% right on our Tuesday podcast where you said Iggy changed the dynamic of the secondary with how he likes to chop it up and chat. Excuse me. And get after people. And then you add in another SEC guy in Caleb Downs.
Yep. I don't think it's far stretched to say that Jermaine's as good as those guys right now. I think that argument can be made.
Yeah,
we saw what he did when he filled in against Penn State last year. Now, granted,
right.
Drew Aller's horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 weeks ago, people were talking about that guy being a first-round pick next year, and then he went out and did what he did in the spring game, and their best receiver hit the portal right afterwards.
Well, I again, you and I both said, you got to take a deep breath too, because Justin Fields, 4 of 13 or whatever. So, but I haven't seen enough out of Aller to say, oh yeah, he's going to be great next year. Because last year, he struggled.
Aller started all last year.
Yeah, he struggled. He struggled last year.
Different than Fields coming in, having never started, basically not playing at all at UGA.
Right.
Then coming in front of whatever, there was 80, I think there were 80,000 at that game too, or maybe 70. A little bit different than a guy who was the starter all of last year, coming in and looking as bad as he.
Oh, I agree, man. I'm not arguing that even a little bit. I agree 100% that that was that was an abysmal performance. And the thing is I'm not a Penn State fan. My dad liked Penn State when Paterno was here. Like it just is a, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, respect thing. And Aller being from Ohio, I was hoping he would do well. Anytime you have Ohio kids that do well nationally, it's good. It's good for Ohio high school football.
He's a
So
Medina kid, right?
he's not from very far away from me. Yeah, there's a lot of kids. Ryan Montgomery's, about an hour from here, give or take. And Tavian St. Clair, it's about a half hour for me to go watch him play. So there's not, Sam Williams Dixon was literally in my backyard, more or less.
Hey, speaking of those two you just mentioned, Ryan Montgomery and Tavian St. Clair, how cool is it that arguably I think Ohio State and Georgia will be ranked 1 and 2 going into the season. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think Georgia probably will get the nod, probably because of their quarterback position.
Yeah.
But how cool is it that those two programs each have an Ohio kid coming in as their number one quarterback in the recruiting classes next year?
Oh, it's fantastic. Cool. It's fantastic. Ohio has some really great quarterback prospects. I mean, wow. I'm excited for Ryan Montgomery as well. Georgia, obviously they have the prestige, and anytime we talk right now, it's Ohio State and Georgia, Ohio State and Georgia, Ohio State and Georgia. So congratulations to him. And I know Luke was excited for him as well. So, I knew all along we weren't going to have a Cardale and Braxton scenario where both kids came here. Just wasn't in the cards. And given the way that football is today and being a national sport, and the fact that how easy air travel is, it just wasn't going to happen. So, but congratulations to him, and it's exciting to have Ohio State and Georgia with the probably 1 and 2. And then the top two, programs in the nation with kids from Ohio playing quarterbacks. So that's good news. Yep. Dan, any hot takes from you, man? Anything? I know you had a little Twitter beef today, and you were going to meet in the parking lot at 3:00 after school. So
yeah, I've got 87 people meeting me at 7-Eleven. On the banks of the canal. That there's a story there from when I moved to Arizona as a 13-year-old. But
I thought you were going to say on the banks of the old Lintangi.
No. No, man. It's just it's the Twitter world is interesting. People can hide behind their little avatar and their name that doesn't have their name in it.
Mm-hmm.
Say whatever they want and be a keyboard warrior.
Twitter tough guys.
Those kids are most likely, those are most likely the kids that got picked last for kickball in elementary school. But
sounds about right.
It's just, I've got to learn to step back from it, or else I'm gonna, there is
your blood pressure goes up. Your blood pressure goes up. Your face gets red.
There is a bunch of Ohio State boards on Facebook, like Facebook groups.
Oh, I don't do.
And I had to unfollow them last year because it's just reprehensible, some of the stuff that goes on in there. So,
well, you think about the age of people that are on Facebook now too. Like I'm not a big Facebook user. I kind of use it, as like we use it for our pod, and then I'll use it to like keep my extended family. So I have family all over Ohio, the Ohio Valley, essentially, and then in Florida. And so I use it to like keep them updated on my kids and like kind of how things are going. And, I have 30 cousins, so on my dad's side of the family. So I try to keep everybody, in the loop, because otherwise, I get those like the random phone call and they're like, hey, how's it going? Anyways, that's a really weird segue, but yeah, that's it for me, man. I'm good. Like, I'm hoping that next week we have some more portal content. Stick with us, because Dan and I are going to do as we've talked about, do a breakdown of the season, kind of like what we expect the games to look like against each of Ohio State's opponents. So we'll be doing that casually, looking at what after the transfer portal closes, looking at what each team has, what our expectations are for the game, and then based off of like what we have. So I'm pretty sure that no one is going to score any points against us until we play. I don't know. maybe Oregon.
Maybe.
And
Yeah.
I'm having fun, guys. I'm just having fun. So, like I said, I'm feeling a little feisty today.
Hey,
So,
on that note, I would like to see some goose eggs next year. Like, I'll
yeah,
be
I would too.
incredibly
I want some
disappointed
shout outs, man.
if we don't see 2 or 3 next year. Hey, on one thing I do want to say is that, and I was going to hold back from saying this, but
Let's,
so it's just it's silly season. It's like the NFL draft right now. Be careful of what you believe. We try to go off of stuff that has been confirmed, and as we've said a million times, we're not insiders. We have the luxury of knowing a few people on this particular team, or people that are connected to this particular team, rather. Um, but just don't don't believe everything you hear, and people can turn around and say the same thing about us, and that's fair.
yep. We,
But just we at least want to be responsible with stuff that we put out there this time of the year.
so one of the things that I would say and about us is we are conservative with what we put out there, because I can promise you, if we put everything out there, and and someday, many years from now, maybe we'll be able to, and we have screenshots for receipts, so to prove that we actually have this stuff, people will say, well, gosh, you gave us 1% of what you knew. And there's a reason we do that, because we don't, that's just not how we operate. So take it for what it's worth.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks, Dan. I appreciate you. It's been a fun, interesting week since the spring game, then the transfer portal. So it's a little quieter than what we thought, but definitely some tits and tats about the quarterback situation, which I'm sure will continue into summer. Anyways, you guys have a good weekend. Thanks for listening. Again, thanks for all of your viewership, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And we always forget to say that. And don't miss Dan's appearance on Scarlet and Great again with Corey tonight, Friday night. And if there's any questions or anything you have, don't be afraid to hit us up on Twitter. We'll either answer them on our show or answer you directly. So have a good weekend, and as always, stay safe. Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.